Hello, welcome to How to Monitor Pupil Premium as a Governor. This is a video from the Diocese of Bath and Wells. My name is Claire Hudson and I'm a School Organisation and Governance Advisor. Outside of work, I'm also a Chair of Governors. In this video, we're going to cover what is Pupil Premium, who's entitled to receive it and how should it be spent. We're going to talk about what the government requires of schools in terms of statutory reporting. I'm going to cover what governors should do to monitor Pupil Premium, including the role of the Link Governor. I'm going to cover visits and questions to ask, reporting back to your governing body, the link to Ofsted, as well as to SIAMS and the Church of England Vision for Education. Governors have a responsibility to monitor Pupil Premium. The monitoring of it falls into the third core function of governance as set out in the Governance Handbook 2020, which is overseeing the financial performance of the organisation and making sure that the money is well spent. I'm just going to take a little bit of time now to just be really clear what Pupil Premium is to make sure that we're all clear on it. So publicly funded schools in England, that's maintained schools and academies, get extra funding from the government to help them improve the attainment of disadvantaged pupils. Evidence shows that children from disadvantaged backgrounds can face extra challenges in reaching their potential at school, don't perform as well as their peers. The Pupil Premium Grant is designed to allow schools to help disadvantaged pupils by improving their progress and the exam results that they achieve. The Pupil Premium is not based on ability. So research shows that the most academically able pupils from a disadvantaged background are most at risk of underperforming. So schools should focus on these pupils just as much as pupils with low results. With eligibility and funding, receipt is not always automatic, so do ask how your school is encouraging parents and carers whose children are entitled to this funding to sign up. Schools get £1,345 for every primary age pupil and £955 for every secondary age pupil who claims free school meals or who has claimed free school meals in the last 6 years. So that could mean that a child that was entitled to free school meals in reception will still be receiving it in year 5 and year 6, which is brilliant for that child and so on. So please do make sure that anyone who is entitled to it does actually claim it. Schools will get £2,345 per year for every pupil who has left local authority care through adoption or a special guardianship order or child arrangements order. The local authority will get the same amount, that's £2,345 per year, for each child that is in care, so the child that they're looking after. Virtual school heads are responsible for managing the Pupil Premium funding for the children that are in their care and for allocating it to the school. So they need to work with the school to decide how the money is used to support the child's personal education plan. So do, if you have children that are looked after, make sure that you are clear how that Pupil Premium is coming to the school and how it's being spent. Now, there is a general view, a belief that children of service people are entitled to Pupil Premium. That's not actually accurate. They are entitled to service premium. So it's not part of the Pupil Premium because the rules to attract the funding are different. So schools will get £310 for every pupil with a parent who is serving in Her Majesty's Armed Forces or who has retired on a pension from the Ministry of Defence. This funding is to help with pastoral support and is not connected to disadvantage. It's paid with the Pupil Premium simply to make it easier for schools. So if you do have children who attract service premium, do please make sure that it is very clear about what it is for and make sure that you're asking how it's being spent on pastoral support for them. Uses of Pupil Premium. Well, obviously, school leaders are the best place to assess their pupils' needs and to use funding to improve attainment. And it's up to school leaders to decide how the Pupil Premium is spent. So that's not a governor's decision, it's very much an operational decision. And very briefly, there's evidence to suggest that Pupil Premium spending is most effective when schools use a tiered approach targeting spending across CPD. So obviously that's training and professional development for staff to improve their impact of teaching and learning for pupils. Also for academic support, so working out the main issues stopping pupils from succeeding at school. and obviously using the pupil premium to buy extra help. And then wider approaches, which may include non-academic use of the pupil premium, such as school breakfast clubs, music lessons, provision of appropriate equipment for students who would not otherwise be able to take part in specific activities, help with the cost of educational trips or visits, speech and language therapy, and so on. It's all for governors. You just when you find out what it's being spent on, you just need to judge whether that is that qualifies under the rules of pupil premium. Just ask questions, and can your head teacher explain to you, or senior leader explain to you, why those decisions have been made. There is also some flexibility about spending their pupil premium on pupils who do not meet eligibility criteria but need extra support. So if they're in contact with a social worker or have been in contact with a social worker, or if they're acting as a carer. But you just need to be very clear with your head teacher that that use isn't disadvantaging a child who is entitled to it. And also I question, if any of these are the case, have they actually become entitled to pupil premium? It's always worth checking out. So your designated teacher for looked after children must work with the local authority who hold the pupil premium for pupils who are in their care. And this grant needs to be used without delay for the benefit of the child's educational needs as described in their personal education plan. So do pay attention to, if you've got any looked after children, as to what's going on with their pupil premium. Adoptive parents and guardians of children who have left care, so that's whether it's through a special guardianship order or child arrangements order, should be involved in deciding how pupil premium is used to support their child, and also be the main contact for queries about its use. Reporting on your pupil premium. So all maintained schools and most academies must publish an annual pupil premium statement on their website. For the forthcoming year, this must be a DFE provided template. Governors should also receive a report, though the way it's presented is at your head teacher's discretion. These reports are because governors, parents and other interested parties need to understand how the school is allocating the pupil premium, which is the main purpose of both reports. So the online statement, so the one that is the public document, it is not an accounting tool, it does not monitor attainment gaps and will not be used by the Department for Education to allocate future funding or to monitor how effectively the pupil premium is used. However, Ofsted will use it to help them prepare for their visit. So your online statement should include the amount you were allocated, your plans for spending the allocation, the decision making behind those plans, including any issues your school wants to address, the expected impact of the work, and what effect last year's pupil premium spending had in your school. While it's difficult to measure qualitative outcomes, for example, improved resilience, these areas should still be covered in the statement. This would include the reasons for targeting non-academic areas, what outcomes are expected, and any evidence to show that the decision that's made is working. In your report to governors, you would expect to see pretty much the same stuff. The number of pupils and those eligible for the pupil premium, including what types of pupil premium, key performance indicators for eligible pupils, a written summary of your school's objectives and actions in spending the grant. This might be part of your school improvement plan, but it might not be. Outcomes to date and further actions to be taken. A list of items or projects your school has funded with the grant and also the impact that they have had. Detail in the report to governors may cover more than 1 year. So although it's not compulsory, some schools adopt a 3-year strategy which enables planning over a longer period. If you do not currently have a 3-year plan, you could ask your head teacher the reason for doing it year on year. Your school may have a pupil premium policy. This is not a statutory policy, but if you do have one, your head and senior leadership team are responsible for writing it, implementing it, assessing it, and reporting on it. Governors do approve the policy, though it can be delegated to a committee if required, and they also determine the review cycle and they need to monitor it. So this is separate from monitoring the pupil premium, you're monitoring the pupil premium policy. If you do have a pupil premium policy, it may contain the following: an explanation of the categories of people eligible for pupil premium, So that would be free school meals, looked after children, previously looked after children, and so on, the ones that we've talked about already. An explanation of how the school might use the grant. So examples may include one-to-one or small group support, employing extra teaching assistants, running catch-up sessions before or after school, providing extra tuition where needed, funding educational trips, and so on, funding English classes for children who speak another language, so on and so forth. You need to be clear who will do what under the policy, such as the governing body monitor the effectiveness of the policy and hold the head teacher to account for its implementation. The head teacher and senior leadership, they make sure the policy is implemented and adhered to, and then it meets stated objectives. Other staff would implement the policy, identify pupils whose attainment isn't improving in response to interventions funded by Pupil Premium. So if you have a policy, you should be monitoring it. And you need to ask challenging questions of senior leaders when the policy comes to you for approval so that you can be absolutely sure that the policy reviewing process was robust. So questions might include, how is this policy going to meet the needs of our children receiving Pupil Premium? How are the needs identified and how will the Pupil Premium grant be used to meet those needs? Staff should be able to identify the primary barriers to attainment for pupils who attract the Pupil Premium in your school and how the policy would address those needs. The answer should show that the spending plan is underpinned by evidence. You may also ask, how will staff monitor the progress and attainment of children receiving the Pupil Premium in their classes? Since interventions purchased with the Pupil Premium grant can be used to benefit all pupils and not just those on Pupil Premium, school leaders should be able to describe a system where teachers can track the progress of pupils in an intervention programme, both as a whole and as a Pupil Premium cohort. Teachers can quickly identify and further assist pupils who aren't progressing in response to interventions funded by Pupil Premium. So you've been to your first governing body of the year and you're now the Pupil Premium Link Governor. So what's your role? Effectively, you are the board's specialist. So you'll know the Pupil Premium policy, if you've got one. You will also be aware of the number of children eligible for Pupil Premium in your school, what type of Pupil Premium they attract, and how the school is choosing to spend their funding. You will take an active part in any governing body or committee discussion where the allocation and monitoring of Pupil Premium is discussed and decided. You will actively monitor by asking questions of staff during governing body meetings and also during governing body monitoring visits to the school. You will understand relevant pupil performance data for the school that shows the progress of different groups over time. You will monitor the spending of the Pupil Premium, making sure money is spent in identifiable ways to support target groups of pupils and challenging the allocation of funds if there's no clear rationale or audit trail for the decision. You would monitor the impact of the Pupil Premium spending on the target groups and also the attainment of different groups of pupils over time to provide evidence of how pupils eligible for the Pupil Premium are progressing compared with others. You will also report back to the governing body on the school's use of the Pupil Premium, overall responsibility for making sure that the funding is spent and on improving attainment for eligible pupils. Now that sounds like an awful lot, but the reality is the staff that are responsible for Pupil Premium will have all this information at their fingertips. You just need to make sure that you understand it and that you're able to really dig into the data with them and make sure that your Pupil Premium is being spent effectively. I'm just going to go through now a few monitoring questions that you might want to ask. Bear in mind that you may or may not be the link governor when you're being asked to do monitoring of Pupil Premium. So just make sure that you are, if you're not the link governor, that you are actually making sure you're getting the information, the dig down information that you might need to answer some of these questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through these questions on screen and kind of give you the sort of information that I would expect that you would be given. So for the first one, what do we spend our Pupil Premium on? Your head or your senior leaders should be able to outline how the funding is used. So for example, it could be spent on specific resources and intervention programs. One thing to point out here is that you don't need information about specific interventions for individual pupils. Please always be aware of your responsibilities under data protection legislation, and this is particularly important if you're a governor in a small school and specific pupils are really easily identifiable. So next you might want to ask, how did you make the decision to choose the areas you're spending money on? And you might expect to hear that decisions are based on relevant targets in the school improvement plan, or on specific areas of underperformance that have been identified through assessment or other internal data. You might expect to hear that research and reports have been received about what strategies would help to close the attainment gap. The third question is, how does the school monitor the progress of the eligible pupils? And you might expect to hear that the school's assessment system is used effectively to monitor progress for all pupils eligible for funding. You might expect to hear that data analysis of progress and attainment, but also behaviour and attendance is being used. And you might expect to hear about pupil progress meetings with class teachers. So the next question is, how does the progress and attainment of eligible pupils compare with their non-eligible peers? And you would want to hear that staff have a clear idea of how pupils eligible for the premium perform compared to others, and are able to refer to assessment data, both recent and historic, when making those comparisons. If their attainment is not as good, you might ask why this is the case and what is being done to address it. If there isn't an attainment gap at your school, how are the staff using the funding to stretch pupils further? How are the more able disadvantaged pupils being pushed? So then you want to go to, what is the impact of the decisions you made? What are the outcomes going to be? So what is the effect of that spend? Your pupil premium spending should have a noticeable impact. So the funding is allocated specifically to close the attainment gap between disadvantaged pupils and their peers. And to evidence the impact, staff might provide internal or external assessment data to show that pupil progress and attainment has increased for eligible pupils compared to their peers. Could refer to the published pupil premium statement that's available on your website. And all the next one is, do outcomes show good value for money? This is more qualitative but possible to answer. Staff might show that the spend has resulted in significant progress and attainment, and therefore have determined that decision has shown good use of money. While we're focusing mostly on pupil premium, you should ask how service premium is spent and the impact that additional funding has had. So what do we need to prepare for when Ofsted come to visit? The thing to remember, there's no graded judgment for pupil premium spending, but it does affect the leadership and management judgment. Ofsted are going to look for evidence that the way your school uses its funding is based on good evidence. So going back to the previous things we've talked about, so everybody being really clear about why they're spending the money and the impact that it's having. Ofsted are already going to have reviewed your school's pupil premium statement on your website. Things that they won't ask for, so documents related to pupil premium besides the statement. They won't want data related to spending on individual students or within class or within school gaps. Inspectors will collect evidence related to pupil premium in the same way that they collect other data. So that'll be observations of teaching in the classrooms, break times and training activities. They'll also hold discussions with pupils, teachers and support staff, and also conducting work scrutiny. From the governors, inspectors will be looking for evidence of leadership, strategy and challenge. So they may ask to see minutes from meetings for evidence of effective challenge, and to see any reports to the governing body from the link governor for pupil premium if you have one. So a quick reminder that the only evidence we have of our work is as follows. There's three things: effective minutes, written up monitoring visits, and our ability to answer questions when we're asked in inspection. It's actually really hard to evidence that you're doing a good job, and you could be doing a brilliant job, but if your paperwork and administration isn't that good, there is no evidence there. So do please make sure that you are talking about it in the appropriate meetings, that people are asking questions, that when you do your monitoring visits, that you do write those up and submit them to the governing body, and also that you know your stuff so you can answer those questions. So in discussion, the Ofsted inspector may ask you how much funding the school receives, what the funding is spent on, and what evidence you use to determine its effectiveness, and what impact the funding is having on pupils. and what your plans are for Pupil Premium over the next 3 years. So it's all the stuff that we've covered in the previous slides. The things that you'd be expected to know as the link governor, would be expected to come up at meetings, or expected to ask you on monitoring visits. So if you've done those, you are prepared for Ofsted. If you're watching from a non-church school, please do feel free to skip forward to the last slide now. I'm just going to talk a little bit about the Church of England Vision for Education and also SIAMS and how our Pupil Premium work feeds into both of those. So the Church of England Vision for Education offers a vision of human flourishing for all, one that embraces excellence and academic rigour while setting them within a wider framework. And it's explained through 4 pillars, which are wisdom, knowledge and skills, hope and aspiration, community and living well together, and dignity and respect. And at the heart of the vision of the words of Jesus is taken from John 10:10, I have come that they may have life, life in all its fullness. And your school should be able to show that that vision underpins the effective use of Pupil Premium to ensure all children flourish and live life in all its fullness. So when it comes to looking at Pupil Premium and your SIAMS inspection, so your SIAMS CEF is the key document here. The Church of England vision, and if you're in a multi-academy trust, their vision will set the context. But SIAMS is particularly concerned with the school's own vision. So the SIAMS key question as relates to Pupil Premium is, how effective is the school's Christian vision established and promoted by leadership at all levels in enabling pupils and adults to flourish? So the key words that you might expect to hear when you are describing how you deliver that section are as follows. So vision, so perhaps the Church of England, but also your school's own vision. Can your governors articulate the school's vision? What's their role in establishing and monitoring it? Another key word is leadership, which includes the governors, and then also flourishing. So obviously the best outcomes for all children, especially the disadvantaged and including Pupil Premium children. So you want children to be flourishing academically, physically and spiritually. Can governors articulate how Pupil Premium money contributes to this flourishing? When you're undertaking your governor monitoring, you can consider how Pupil Premium usage in your school reflects your school's Christian vision. So is your Pupil Premium strategy covering each of the vision for education pillars and enabling eligible children to live life in all its fullness? The more information you can put about standard practice of the school into your SIAMS CEF will show that the Christian distinctiveness of your school is fully embedded in the life of your school, and that can only help your SIAMS CEF. So that's why actually reflecting on that for Pupil Premium is really helpful. Thank you for watching this video. For further information, you can see the Key for School Governors and also the National Governance Association. These are both paid for sites, but if you don't currently have access to them, I really recommend that your school does take out a subscription for your governors to one or both of them, because they're really valuable for governing bodies. If you have any questions about this video, please do contact me, Claire Hudson, on the email address shown on the screen.